17 down, only one more to go, and we're going to dig into some of those winner-take-all matchups. Jonathan Jones, Joe Musso, Bryant McFadden, Patrick Peterson, and we will begin, Mac, where it will end. Game 272 of 272 in the NFL regular season will feature your Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens for the first ever winner-take-all in the storied history of that head-to-head. I want to start with what we've seen most recently, that being King Henry running roughshod at Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
What is it going to take for those Steelers to have an answer to that run game?
They got to play ant defense. I don't know if you guys know what ant defense is, but have you ever seen ants attack
together?
Street crumbs?
You take that leaf,
any crumbs
you
that's
run
on
with
the
that
street,
leaf, yeah.
It's 1,000 of them. They just come from everywhere. They swarm to the crumb, right? So for Pittsburgh, that's what they have to do against Derrick Henry. They have to swarm in a relentless way and not allow Derrick Henry to get going. Because what we saw against Green Bay was the Baltimore Ravens, without Lamar Jackson, they told all of us without telling us, because of the mishap in that Sunday night game against the Patriots, we will not allow Derrick Henry to not be a part of this ball game. He will have a significant impact, and they got Derrick Henry going early. So if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you cannot allow Derrick Henry to get going early. You want to be able to slow him down, which will eventually take him out of the ball game. You know what I mean? So for Pittsburgh, tackling has to be at an all-time high, swarming to the football, and not allowing him to go north and south. You want him to be a lateral type runner, because he's not at his best when he's moving east and west. He's at his best when he's going north and south, and that has to be the key for their success defensively against one of the more imposing running backs in the National Football League.
The winner of this football game will have the 4 seed in the AFC. The loser, Cancun on 3. Pat, there are 2 big omissions, or at least there have been over these last few weeks on both sides. TJ Watt on one side, Action Jackson on the other. Let's start with Lamar here, operating under the understanding that you want your multi-time MVP quarterback back. How does that add a layer to this week's preparation, not knowing if or when you do know who your quarterback's going to be if you're Baltimore?
Well, you know what's interesting about that is the Baltimore Ravens been dealing with this for pretty much the entirety of the year. Lamar Jackson, is he going to play? He hasn't been practicing. He'll come out and practice with the team on Thursdays, but I believe they're going to need him in this ball game in order to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I don't think they're going to be geared up enough to really lean on Derrick Henry. They're going to need some passing plays in this ball game in order to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Pittsburgh Steelers is good enough. Mike Tomlin is a good enough coach to understand if Lamar Jackson is not playing, the ball game is going to be in Derrick Henry's hands. So they're going to put all of their eggs in one basket and stopping Derrick Henry and forcing Snoop Huntley to beat them. And I don't think he's going to be good enough to beat them. So Lamar Jackson is a pivotal piece into this Baltimore Ravens offense.
We have seen the injury report, Jonathan Jones, weaponized before by Baltimore specifically this season. That might be a little bit strong here, but what can we expect throughout the week to know who our cast of characters will be?
It's a unique way to put it. I would say this, based off of Lamar Jackson's injury history with the Ravens this season, I don't know that you can tell anything from the injury report. I would be surprised if he practices at all on Wednesday. If he does, I don't know that that's necessarily a great sign, that he could be limited on Wednesday. Okay, well, it's going to be about how he wakes up and feels on Thursday. It's going to be about how it goes throughout the week. What do the passes actually look like when the media isn't there to view it? So I'm not going to read anything at all, really, into the injury report on Lamar Jackson. As it relates to Snoop Huntley, I think that they are probably going to get him more first-team reps than they would like to admit, because they have to have him ready. You absolutely have to have him ready. And, you know, I understand the plan of, okay, you got an ant defense. You have to swarm tackle Derrick Henry. Everybody knows that, and you got to do it, right? Okay, let's stop him early. He's only going to get better as the game goes along. We've seen it. He's the best fourth-quarter running back in NFL history. So this is going to be a tough road for both teams, but I think it's going to be tougher for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Because I think their vibes are so terrible right now. They just lost to an undermanned Cleveland Browns team. And if they just win that game, we're not even talking about this game. We're not even talking. And I know, but resident Steelers fan. So you go ahead. You go ahead. You tell me how high the vibes are.
The vibes are, they were down. They were a bit annoyed. But as they get prepared for this ball game, they will be up again, because one thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we all seen as football fans, they play down to their opponent or they play up to their opponent. That's been the issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Seeing what happened against Cleveland Browns, a down opponent, they played down. Right, we saw what happened earlier in the year against the Baltimore Ravens.
They booed Renegade.
They played up to their opponent.
Fired Tomlin,
you know what I mean?
raining down from the 300
So all I'm
seconds.
saying is this: you're right. It was a horrible defeat because of the team you lost to. But they're playing against the Baltimore Ravens, and everything they had as a goal preseason is still before them. All they have to do is win, and they're not afraid of Baltimore. Mike Tomlin, head-to-head record against Coach Harbaugh, he's 22-17. The most wins against another coach in the Super Bowl era. He's 22-17 against Baltimore, right? Yeah. Lamar Jackson has a losing record against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So everything you said is dead on.
Yeah.
But in terms of these two teams, and Lamar Jackson, if he plays against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he hasn't had a lot of success. Coach Harbaugh has not had a lot of success against Mike Tomlin. And this game is in Acrisure.
What is past is not prelude. Our future is going to be a fun one in the final game of the regular season between those two.
I'm fired up now. You done got me fired up.
For the 4 seed. 4 is going to get 5. It's going to be a tough matchup for whoever comes out of the AFC North. You offer ants, and maybe it's ants in the land of giants, because there's so many teams with 10-plus wins right now looking at the playoffs. These are 500 football teams we're talking about there in the AFC North and elsewhere in the NFC South. As we fix our focus there, Jonathan Jones, the line winner take all has bounced around, and it could be that in about 24 hours' time. But give me the wrinkle here offered by Atlanta.
Okay, here's the wrinkle. If these three teams, Carolina, Tampa, and Atlanta, all finish 8-9 because of tiebreakers, because of how they have played against one another, the Carolina Panthers would win that tiebreaker at 8-9 and ultimately be the NFC South champion. And so if Atlanta can somehow beat the Los Angeles Rams on Monday, and then on Sunday, the Atlanta Falcons can beat the New Orleans Saints, they would have won out and been 8-9. It doesn't matter what winds up happening on Saturday. And so that is what makes it very, very interesting. Now, the NFL has put the Carolina Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Saturday so that you don't know the outcome of Atlanta, right? And again, this may not matter after Monday night if and when the Rams beat the Falcons.
So a potentially Carolina winner take all. Buccaneers win and wait.
I mean, there is a scenario where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have only won one game in about 2 months, wind up beating the Carolina Panthers and still don't make it to the playoffs. And what we all have been saying would be a win and in for several weeks now, that may not actually be the case. Again, low odds of that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think what we're all really talking about is Carolina and Tampa at Raymond James Stadium for the division.
For the division, for again the 4 seed there, which they will represent. They will then get the 5 seed, which currently could either be LA or Seattle. Good luck and good morrow. We don't have to push that far forward here, Mac, but when you look at the South, Tampa Bay, who can't figure out their left foot from the right now, and Carolina, who at times we've seen play up to their competition.
Yeah.
Who do you like on that football field?
It's hard, man. The last few weeks, I've been going with Tampa in the midst of this losing streak, even against Miami. I felt like they should beat Miami because they're still a talented team, and they've gotten healthier. They've gotten their pass catchers back in the lineup. They've gotten Bucky Irvin back in the lineup. The offensive line dealing with a few injuries, but yet and still, they should be good enough to win ball games that they're losing. And then when you look at the Carolina Panthers, I talked about this throughout the entire day today. They haven't won back-to-back games since early October. Since then, they've been in this win-lose type of trend, right? They lost today. They won last week. So if that trend stands firm going into the final week of the season, they should win this ball game. But one thing I can say about Carolina, they're not afraid of Tampa.
No.
And I trust Carolina's defense more so than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' defense.
What about quarterback?
Now, what we saw from Bryce Young today, he threw for 54 yards. That is a 7U stat line for a quarterback. Yeah. A 7U quarterback's 54 yards.
Triple option.
No question. Triple option and just quarterback sweep left and right. But do I believe he will have that type of performance Sunday in Raymond James? No.
Not against Tampa.
And one thing I've seen from Bryce Young, he can become a gamer in some of the more critical moments of the ball game. So to answer your question, this Baker Mayfield, I think he's still injured.
Yeah.
I think something's wrong with that shoulder because the production, the consistency isn't there. He's not playing with confidence. So I side with Bryce Young because I think he's healthier and he has that playmaker ability.
Pat, Tampa needs a spark, and I think that might be the understatement of the segment here. Where do they find their spark?
Man, typically it's from Baker.
Yeah.
But Baker he's a sitting duck right now.
Yeah.
You can just tell he's not the same player that he once was in the first 2 months of the season. his mechanics in the pocket, just real jittery. It's just, his eyes starting to come down when he's starting to scramble. So it's a lot of bad things that Baker is putting on tape right now. But I do think it's cause of the injury.
All right, let's move forward here to the NFC towards the top. The 1 seed going to come down to a Saturday night special in Santa Clara between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. And Mac, I'm just having a hard time figuring out how Seattle is going to keep pace with San Francisco if a scoring outburst breaks out the way we saw it on this Sunday night. What is the winning formula if we do start seeing points on the board for Sam Darnold and the Seahawks?
Pressure, Brock Purdy. Turn the football over on Brock Purdy. Heat him up. Do not allow him to get comfortable. Because what we've seen from Brock Purdy since returning from that injury, he's been the hottest quarterback in the National Football League. The graphics states that. He's 1-1-1-1-1. His last 3 ball games, he has a total of 13 touchdowns. Consecutive games of at least 5 total touchdowns. Those are video game-like numbers, and he's playing with confidence, right? And defensively, they just got to get timely stops. That's it. You don't need to be the monsters of the midway of the steel curtain. Just get timely stops. You know, bow your back here and there in the red zone, and your offense can do the rest. So in this matchup at home, I like Brock Purdy. I like San Francisco.
Yeah, I think you're dancing around I was dancing around the word that you offered, and that's confidence. The confidence of Sam Darnold, Pat, is what I'm excited to see. This is a team that scored 2 first-half touchdowns in their last 7 games. What are you looking for early in this football game that shows you confidence from Sam Darnold?
Getting off to a fast start, right away, because like you said, I believe they're not going to be afforded to come out and play slow and have a slow start against this 49ers offensive team just because of what Brock Purdy, how he's been playing these last 2 weeks. The Seattle Seahawks defense can do a great job, probably better than anybody have done since going up against Brock Purdy, and that's creating pressure. The Seattle defense is very, very optimistic. They can take the ball away, they can create pressure, they can get the quarterback on the ground. So they're going to need that pressure at a high rate to have an opportunity to slow this 49er offense down.
2 games since the bye week for the San Francisco 49ers. 37 points, 48 points, 10 total touchdowns from Brock Purdy. What do you see in your mind's eye when you play out San Francisco, Seattle, 1 seed on the line?
I think that Seattle needs to do everything that they can to make sure that the 49ers get as few possessions as possible. Right. This is a very good Seattle Seahawks defense. Let's make no mistake about that. It is hard to imagine that the Niners will score the amount of points that they just did on a pretty good Indianapolis Colts defense, and then on a much better and still pretty good Chicago Bears defense. It's still hard for me to think that Seattle's going to give up that number of points. And so, Pat, I completely agree with you about Sam Darnold coming out hot. But I think there's going to be a fine line here for the Seattle Seahawks where I'm interested in them just snapping the ball late in the play clock almost every time. Drain this clock to bring down the possessions. Muck up the game in a classic Seattle Seahawks way. Give the Niners something like 6 possessions. Because right now we're seeing them score 6 or 7 times in a game. Don't let them have that many opportunities to do that. And then lastly, the last time that we saw Sam Darnold in a Week 18, he turned into a pumpkin, right? That was a win and you're the 1 seed, or you get the wild card game. And then that led to the playoff game against the Rams where we saw Sam Darnold. Again, he probably could have been something close to a $50 million man. Yeah. He may still be the quarterback in Minnesota. That's where it sort of went off the rails for him. So now we have this game right here in Seattle. I'm very interested to see how that's going to go for him against Robert Saleh's
It's funny that you mentioned that because you look at the last 2 ball games with Sam Darnold. You look at the first 3 quarters in that Thursday night game against the Rams. He didn't perform well. Of course, the fourth quarter comeback. And even in the Carolina matchup, he didn't perform well. He made enough plays, but he didn't really give you what he's given the Seattle Seahawks throughout the entirety of the season. So you have one quarterback that's thriving. The other quarterback is kind of trying to figure things out in the more critical moments. And hopefully, for Seattle's sake, that he comes in hot.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to be sleeping at the wheel, because if they sleep at the wheel, they're going to run into a ditch. And that ditch will mean not getting that number 1 spot in the NFC.
Do you think his team's taking Ejigba out of the game plan for him? Because the last 2 weeks, he haven't been getting off to those hot starts as well.
I think when you look at their arsenal, the passing game, it starts and it stops with JSN. So when you do neutralize or efface him out of the game plan, who else does Sam Darnold really trust? That's the thing I think has kind of hampered some of his production, the lack of trust with some of the other pass catchers, because he's leaned on JSN so much this season.
You got to trust somebody. And as JJ said, a mirrored scenario as a season ago. And could it be for Sam Darnold? Back-to-back 13-win seasons for two different teams and no division titles. We'll see how it all plays out Saturday and Sunday. Week
Get your popcorn ready.
NFL.
Showdown, baby.
We got a division at stake in your early one Saturday. We got a 1 seed at stake in your nightcap. As for Sunday, notable games in your 1P window on CBS. Colts and Texans as the Texans continue to jockey for seeding, that is. Titans and Jaguars as the Jags do the same and try and lock up a division. And Mac,
Real quick,
right
NFC
here.
South is still up, AFC South is up for grabs also.
That's right.
And we also have a 1 seed up for grabs in the AFC. The Broncos take care of business with a win of their own. With a loss, it's open for those Patriots who take on the Dolphins, the Bears, either a 2 or a 3 seed, as it's a rekindling with Ben Johnson's old team in the Detroit Lions, Jets, and Bills, rounding out that Sunday 4:25 Eastern Time slate.